So just a quick video today folks, because Diablo 4 just came out and I plan to no lie for that all day. But Project Playtime just had its first major update the devs are calling Phase 2 Incineration. With it, the game just got a new map, a bunch of new cosmetics, and of course a bit more lore for us to theorize over. Now I've already analysed most of this update and I found some little details and interesting things that I'd like to talk about today. This update added a second VHS tape, but also something very interesting that we haven't fully figured out yet. So Phase 1 of Project Playtime gave us the VHS tape from Harley Sawyer, nicknamed the Doctor. We found out that Sawyer was the man who came up with the idea for the Bigger Bodies initiative. This initiative was set up for multiple reasons. Playtime Co. was struggling financially at the time, having to lay off staff, leading to issues running the factory. Not only were they struggling with maintaining production, but the lower number of employees also meant that injuries were becoming more common, something that would only put further financial strain on the company. In fact, Sawyer talked about the Bigger Bodies initiative being a way to save Playtime Co., showing just how much trouble they were in. The idea made a lot of sense. Using living toys would mean they didn't have to pay them, plus if they got injured they wouldn't be able to sue. But that wasn't the only interesting thing we got from this VHS tape. We also had this weird text which seemed like it was somebody trying to communicate with us in secret. They told us that the Bigger Bodies initiative would fail, and while they couldn't fully trust us yet, they would contact us again, next time with a gift. Hidden in the static of this part was also the text "Save us," as well as a pawn and a sacrifice. Phase 2 finally revealed what that gift was. Now in the room where we access the VHS tapes, we can find this phone. It turns out the phone was the gift, but it's not yet connected. The new VHS tape gives us a bit more backstory of Sawyer and Project Playtime's poster boy Boxy Boo. In this tape, we hear Sawyer ask to see Boxy. He has this air of admiration in his voice. He almost sounds proud of him, kind of like a father.
And here you are. They said it was impossible, yet you defied all odds.
Here we get confirmation that Boxy was the first successful experiment in the Bigger Bodies initiative, not Poppy as we previously assumed. Keep that in mind though, as I'm going to come back to that later. However, this VHS tape takes a much darker turn than the last one. Sawyer talks about Boxy's appetite and how he wants to tailor it to flesh. Seems like the hunger in these living toys was put there deliberately by Sawyer. But why? It almost seems like he was creating a weapon here. We also find out that Sawyer was monitoring the situation with Rowan Stoll. Knowing that Boxy eventually got him, this VHS massively implies that Sawyer orchestrated the whole thing. We already suspected that the company got rid of Stoll because he got too close to the truth, but this is almost a direct confirmation. We also hear a phone ringing which sends Sawyer into a rage. We get a glimpse of the monster he really is when he tells somebody to turn off that camera.
Get me an update on the situation with Rowan Stoll. What is that? Who is that? Turn off the camera now!
But just like the last VHS tape, this one contains a message for us at the end too. This time they tell us that the phone is our gift, and they are working to establish a secure line. They'll call us when the time arrives. Now I think this is setting up a major plot arc for the overall Poppy Playtime storyline. Whoever this is seems to be actively working against Sawyer and the Bigger Bodies initiative. Not only that, but they seem to need our help. Considering this is set prior to the events of the main game, this whole event has already played out. It's possible that this chain of events was part of the downfall of the factory. This could be tied to the breakout we heard in the scientist tape in chapter 1. This VHS tape also contains a hidden piece of text. This time it says execution .. plan and then a bunch of zeros. While I haven't quite figured out exactly what this code means or if these zeros mean anything, it does seem like this is a plan of execution, obviously. But I don't know whether that means this is a plan that they are executing or whether this is a plan to execute someone. Honestly, at this point, with how we know Poppy Playtime ends up, it could be either way. This could be somebody trying to literally get rid of Sawyer, or it could just be another plan that they're executing. Very interesting either way, and I do wonder if these zeros mean anything. Obviously, I've tried binary, but we need ones for that. Some of these zeros kind of look like they could be B's or 8s, but I really don't know. I don't know if this is just a bunch of zeros or if this is actually a code. Some of the hidden details in the TV though, when you're not watching the VHS tape, in this frame we can see the silhouette of Huggy or Kissy. Also, in the few frames where you can see the color static, if you manipulate the image, you can see that it is a warped version of Huggy or Kissy again, possibly confirming my theory that the VHS static effect is a scrambled Huggy. If you look very hard, you can also see the word 1006. This looks like the death screen in chapter 1 that says 1006, isn't he wonderful? So it's very interesting that it shows up here and then it shows up again in the main game for the protagonist. There also seems to be some hidden words or text in there too. I haven't been able to see it clearly yet, but it definitely looks like something. Finally, I'm convinced there are some hidden images in here too. This part looks very similar to Boxy Boo here, not sure if it's just my mind playing tricks on me or if this is something worth investigating. Now this is something very subtle, but it's also a potential clue to this whole thing. At the end of both messages on each VHS, the person who is talking to us ends with one word. Goodbye? Goodby? At first I thought they had just been cut off before finishing the word, but they sign off this way both times. With how much attention to detail mobs show with these ARGs, I am convinced that it's not a spelling mistake. They surely wouldn't make this one twice. So why is goodbye spelt this way? Well, I have a couple of theories. One, it's the old version of the spelling. I did a quick Google for this video and it does seem to be a legacy way to spell the word, but not one that has been used for a long time. So either this person is an older employee, someone from Elliot Ludwig's days, or alternatively, this isn't the word goodbye at all. This is a name. Goodby is a surname, and it's entirely possible that this person is using it as a sign-off. Seeing as they don't fully trust us, I would doubt that it's their real name, either a code name or a pseudonym, but it's something to consider, something to watch out for in future updates. Maybe we'll find out exactly who this Goodby is. Now there is something else to consider with this. This could be an intentional misspelling. If you remember back to chapter 1, the protagonist receives a letter telling them that the staff are still in the factory, something that might have been a lie to get us back there, but the interesting part about that letter was that it was full of misspellings. I originally theorized that it meant the person who sent it was either a child, uneducated, or even a doll, but this could even mean that this is the same person, although right now their spelling seems to be much better. Perhaps this person's mind is degrading over time, since we know chapter 1 takes place at least 10 years after Project Playtime. Speaking of the timeline though, we can see these snacks in the game say that they expire in 1999. Considering that we are around this factory in Project Playtime, we can assume that this is the rough timeline of this game, which means that Poppy Playtime is set in around 2010 or maybe a little bit later. Either way, until we get a phone call, we can only really speculate. I'm not sure when the time will be, but I'm sure Mob will give us some clues to let us know. Now the tape isn't the only interesting thing to come with the new update. One of the skins from the toy box might actually be a nod to one of our previous theories. If you remember back to before Mommy Longlegs was announced, I made a theory about the teasers we had at the time. I spoke about the claw and how it could be similar to the claw in Coraline, going far as to linking Mommy with the other mother from that story. While it turns out it wasn't Mommy that the claw belonged to, but 1006, the idea of an evil entity making toys still definitely fits, as we found out at the end of chapter 2. Now this Mommy Longlegs skin looks very similar to the dolls in Coraline with the black buttons for eyes. Perhaps a little nod to this theory, as I'm sure other people have noticed a similarity in themes too. Or perhaps someone at Mob just really likes my theories. Probably more likely that someone there is a fan of Coraline. In the update, we also got a whole new section in the waiting room between matches. Now we have a testing area where you can practice the different puzzles and the grab pack mechanics. But interestingly, in the back of this room, we can see these oil drums that are scattered around Playtime Co. This one seems to have been tipped over and spilt its green liquid. Not sure what it is, but usually bright green liquids are dangerous. Considering we know that the gas is going to be very important in chapter 2, hazardous chemicals definitely seem to be a theme here. The new map contains some cool details too. Not only can we see this safety message telling us to report to your mom, we can also see a new poster that seems like a very tongue-in-cheek message from Playtime Co., including some toys we haven't seen yet. Now there are loads of little details on this new map, and there are also some new details on the old maps too. It seems like Mob Gamers have added some extra details for us to see. This part, for example, I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember if this was here before, but I don't think it was. I could be wrong. Either way, there are loads of little details in the maps, most of which don't seem to contain any relevant information yet, but I am keeping them in mind in case we get some more details later. So there we go, these are just some of the things I noticed in Project Playtime. Like I say, the game's only been out for a day. I'm sure there'll be more things that we'll find, but I'm going to go play some Diablo 4. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.